Hey YouTube, welcome back to another History Teacher Reacts video with Mr. Terry as I continue my search for historical knowledge found here on the internet. Alright, today's video comes from one of my favorite channels, and that is Simple History. And this video is on the Ancient Greek Olympics, 776 BC to 393 AD. So kind of the original years of that. And this kind of stuck with me right now because right now I'm playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And they do some stuff with the Olympics, and it's a lot of fun for sure. If you're into gaming, by the way, you got to join the new gaming channel. It's linked down below, and I'm currently doing a playthrough of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. But down in the channel description, you'll see a link to my gaming channel. Go over there and sub if you haven't, enable notifications, so you can come hang out with us while we're playing games. All right, but original video link will be down below. Make sure you give that a view, like, subscribe, all that awesome stuff, so you support those awesome folks over at Simple History. They really like about these guys is they tell really interesting stories. And we'll see if they can really dig some details for the early ancient Greek Olympics. Now, some of the things that people talk about a lot with the ancient Greek Olympics were things like only men were there, so the women weren't really didn't compete or usually didn't even watch. One famous thing is that they competed in the nude, and some of the sports that are still around now they were doing back then. So I'm excited to learn more because it's always fun to talk about, and I like to talk about it in my classroom too. I get questions about it, and so I think this will help me immensely because I think we'll see some new stuff. Okay, let's go ahead and get started.
The Ancient Greek Olympics, 776 BC to 393 AD.
Old school.
The modern Olympic Games started in 1896 by Pierre de Coubertin, a French baron. After the French defeated the Franco-Prussian War in 1870, it was thought that the French youth didn't have enough physical training. This formed the idea of creating the modern Olympic Games when archaeological research discovered new facts about the ancient Greek Olympic Games. It was between 1875 and 1881 that the ruins of the site of the ancient games were uncovered. The Olympic Games began in ancient Greece in July 776 BC at Olympia. As a festival with athlete events staged to honor the god Zeus, the Olympics also united individual Greek city-states and colonies in competition.
So you can actually go and visit some of those sites that they had some of these early events, some of the tracks and stuff like that. Really cool. I need to definitely get there and work on that. And hopefully, if you haven't heard, my pursuit upcoming of doing some original documentaries and stuff, some travel documentaries. Hope to get out to Greece. That's for foreign travel. That's where I need to and want to go next. But anyway, so yeah, you got this meeting of different city-states because if you know about Greece, Greece was never unified under one political entity ever. You had different city-states, and that has to do largely with the geography. The geography of Greece is so divisive, didn't lend itself well to unification. But the Greeks did share a lot of things. Belief in similar gods and festivals. A big reason for that is most of the mythology and stuff for the Greek religion came before the Greeks as we know them here and came from the Mycenaeans, so they shared in that. They had a shared language and things like that, but we're always in a competition with each other. Sometimes they were friendly, sometimes they were fighting, and only in a handful of cases do they ever really unify, of course, the big one being when the Persians show up in the Persian War. So it's like this is a way to get that competitive edge out, maybe without just obliterating each other in war.
The first Olympic Games happened at a time when there wasn't a sense of being Greek. This common identity only came up after the Greco-Persian Wars of 492 through 449 BC. So everyone who participated in the first Olympic Games did not identify himself as Greek, but as a citizen from the city he had come from.
Right. Yeah, you would say, like, I'm a Greek. You'd say, no, I'm a Spartan, I'm an Athenian. And or something, in whatever other city-state you might be from, Argos or something. But one thing they did, it seemed like agreed upon though, was that there was a common Greek like superiority. It's where you get this term barbaroi, and that specifically meant to non-Greek speaking people. So I kind of feel as like the city-states may not have liked each other that much, but they could at least agree that they're better than non-Greeks. You know what I mean? So if you get what I'm following there, it's like, yeah, we're not equal, but I mean, we're not like, yeah, but we're still better than others. You know what I mean?
It isn't known why Olympia was chosen as the site for the games, despite that the fact Mount Olympus was clearly a sacred place for the Greeks. Because it was a sacred place, it was chosen to hold the games, and that's why a
Home of the
great part of
gods,
the
not
Olympics was
Olympics, right?
occupied by religious ceremonies. In anticipation of the games, messengers were dispatched to announce a truce, or ekekairia, among all Greek city-states and colonies. This temporarily halted all wars and facilitated safe travel to Olympia.
You'd hope that we could do that just all the time, right? Can we just be in a permanent state of games so we don't fight each other, right? And yeah, facilitate safe travel. Very cool. One thing I was wondering is spectators. Did people like? I mean, they're kind of getting to it here, but did people travel in? You know, like today in the modern Olympics, people travel from all over the world to go and support their country. So was that a thing that people did? Did society kind of like shut down for those few weeks in a way? You know, like today when you have like the World Cup in soccer, there's countries that kind of just stop for a while for that month or so. I wonder if that was as big back then.
The games were held over the course of 1 day until 684 BC. At that point, they were expanded to 3 days. During the 5th century BC, the Olympics were further extended to a 5-day event.
Ooh.
The Olympics were held every 4 years, from 776 BC to 393 AD. There were 293 consecutive Olympic Games.
By the way, just to point it out, because I love these designs, this front one right here, this blue and white owl, that is kind of the symbol for Athens. Athena, the patron goddess of Athens, is symbolized as an owl. And the one back there, you see, that's the Spartan one. I'm not sure the eye one was. I've heard of it, but I forget which one exactly that was. If you know, you can put in the comments.
Before the games began, an opening ceremony would take place. There was a procession of all competitors to the home of the competition, Olympia. Once they had arrived in Olympia, all participants would swear an oath to the crowd and to the gods that they would abide by all rules and compete against each other with honor and respect. 100 oxen were also sacrificed to Zeus in the most important religious ceremony of the games. The only event...
I don't know if it's true, but one of the things that's cool in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you should have to check this out if you own this game, and you may have just glimpsed over it if you don't. There's what's called Discovery Mode. Basically, it's like a teaching tool where Herodotus, who's one of the characters in the game, who is the father of history, will tour through these different sites in ancient Greece, and one of them is at Olympia. And there was a place, I thought this was really neat, and I'm hoping it's real because it was kind of cool. They had this like alley, I think it's in Olympia there, where they wrote down and inscribed all the people that were caught cheating in the Olympics. It's like a wall of shame. I always thought that was a really neat thing to be put in there.
Held at the first Olympic Games in 776 BC was a foot race called the Stadion. The race was 600 Greek Olympic feet in distance, one stade. The first winner was Korybos from the city of Elis. In 724 BC, a second event, the Diabolos, was introduced. Twice as long as the Stadion. A distance race, the Dolichos, first appeared at the 720 BC Games.
Cross-country, huh?
The Dolichos varied in length anywhere from 7 to 24 stades, but the most common distance was roughly 11,811 feet, or 3,600 meters. The track was made of sand with grooves indicating start and finish lines.
It'd be hard. If you ever run in sand before, it's hard. People do it for resistance training. It'd be hard. Plus, remember, there's no modern shoes and that kind of stuff. It'd be really painful.
The race in armor was added in 520 BC. Interestingly enough, only men were allowed to participate for all the events other than the equestrian events. Participants competed completely nude. This allowed for freedom of movement and no contraband on one's body.
Didn't think of that. You know, I got the whole freedom of movement. You can grab onto clothes and stuff like that, especially something like wrestling there. But yeah, also that you're not cheating. You know, you're in like a fight and you have some hidden shiv or something.
Olympics in 708 BC, as was the pentathlon. The latter included 5 events over 1 day: jumping, discus, stadion, javelin, and wrestling. The jumping event consisted of participants jumping as far as they could while holding stone weights, which they would throw towards the end of their jump in an attempt to propel them even farther forward.
Does that actually help? So you'd run and like swing your arms back and then like kind of let go. Can anyone confirm this? Do we have any long jumpers here?
Music also played as they jumped. The
They got their
discus
amp
throw
up
in the
and
ancient
shit.
Olympics was similar to the freestyle discus throw of today. Originally made of stone, participants would throw the discus as far as possible. Later versions of the discus were made of iron, lead, or bronze.
Very cool.
Javelin was performed with a leather strap and thrown skyward in the same side-on technique as today.
So you can tell a lot of them are relatable to like skills of war, except for the discus. I'm trying to think like how would a discus translate to like a practical skill. Obviously got that with running and stuff like that, and a javelin because you throw spears and things like that.
Wrestling was one of the more popular sports in the ancient Olympics, as it was a highly valued form of military competition in ancient Greece. Competitors would wrestle until one admitted defeat. In 688 BC, boxing was introduced. The boxing event consisted of two participants hitting each other until one was knocked out or admitted defeat. The competitors would originally wrap their hands and wrists in cloth straps to strengthen and steady their fingers and hands. But eventually, these straps evolved into a tough leather that would often leave cuts and scars on the faces of boxers. A blend of boxing and wrestling, the pancration appeared in 648 BC. The only restricted moves in pancration were biting and gouging.
So pretty much like that's like MMA stuff. It's probably a lot about holds and grabs and kicks and stuff like that. But yeah, none of the cheap stuff. All right, we got chariots.
The first equestrian event was added in 680 BC. The Tethropon, a four-horse chariot race, was accompanied by the Keles in 648 BC.
That's cool.
The Keles involved a rider on horseback. During the 5th century BC, a two-horse chariot race, the Synoris, was added as a race for trotting mares, the Calpe. A mule-led chariot race, the Epony, was run for only a short time during the 6th century BC. Olympic athletes from the Greek colonies on southern Italy, Sicily, and Asia Minor arrived at Olympia 1 month before the games to train for their events.
Squatting a donkey.
Upon arrival, they had to declare that they had been training for their events for at least 10 months. Professional and personal trainers accompanied eleptes, oil massagers, in getting athletes ready to compete. Historians believe that since the early part of the history of the Olympics, that athletes were very specialized, at least from 700 BC on.
Unless you're doing the pentathlon, though.
Because of how little evidence there is on competitors winning more than one type of game. Winners of Olympic events received crowns made of olive leaves, or cortinos, and branches from a sacred olive tree called Kallistefanos. These prizes were thought to be magic, at least in the first days. They also returned home as celebrities, heroes in their victorious representation at the Pan-Hellenic event.
I wonder when medals came in. When did they start doing the gold, silver, bronze?
Once victors had returned to their hometowns across Greece, they were hailed as heroes and were celebrated by lavish banquets and even tax exemptions. However, their greatest prize was the historical immortality they achieved. All Olympic
I mean, think about it. If we're mentioning them 2,500 years after, I mean, they did a good job, obviously, doing their record keeping, and we're talking about them. They're totally immortalized. They're like the first professional athletes.
Events were overseen by judges trained at Elis. As the administrative heart of the Olympics, Elis supervised all aspects of the game. To compete was a way to pay tribute to the gods. The competitors swore by Zeus that they would respect the rules of the games and fair play. There were formal rules to every event, and in the event of a violation, athletes were fined, flogged, or simply excluded from the games. One type of punishment was to pay fines, which could then be used to set up statues of Zeus. Spectators traveled from throughout the Greek world to watch the Olympic Games. From 776 to 550 BC, the games were held at the sanctuary to Zeus in Olympia. Later, spectators and attendees, mostly men, gathered at the stadium, a site that accommodated more than 40,000 people by the 2nd century AD.
Wow, 40,000. I mean, that's like a modern day, arena. It's bigger than most modern day arenas. You have to get to open air stadiums to get to that. So that's incredible that they would bring. And having 40,000 definitely means there was a huge foreign, visits.
Women were not permitted to compete in the games, and married women were barred from attending the games under penalty of death by being thrown off a cliff.
Jeez.
When Greece became
does that punishment meet the crime there? Death? How dare you try to sue the athletes?
part of the Roman Empire, the Olympics expanded beyond Hellenic confines. Banned by Theodosius I in 393 AD, they were again shunned by the Roman ruler Theodosius II in 426 AD. natural disasters and plundering invaders wreaked havoc on Olympia for the subsequent centuries. And so, it wasn't until 1896 that the Olympic Games were reinitiated in Athens, Greece.
Oh, Plague Doctor
Hey
guy.
guys, check out this simple history merch on Teespring.
They got some sweet
There's
merch.
t-shirts, mugs, stickers, phone cases, and much more. Link in the description below.
Very cool. All right, that was awesome. Learned, a few new things there about some of a little more details of the events. I mean, I think I knew most of those, but that was cool to kind of see it played out that way with some of those things and how they were treated. Hopefully, you learned a lot there, and there really are a lot of similarities between the games and kind of their intention, and again, a lot of the events that you do there. I mean, there's more now, but I mean, basically all those we still do in a modern form. I wonder how a ancient Greek Olympian, I don't know if they kept track of like the distances they would throw or the times that they would do, and wonder how those times compare to today. Could someone back then like in any way compete with it? Question for you: if you could go and watch any of the events of ancient Greek Olympics, which one would you want to go to? Which one would you want to see? For me, I think those, like the chariot race, I think that would be pretty cool. And I guess if you could just see the whole pentathlon, the 5 events or whatever, that would also be really cool. But that's kind of cheap. That's a lot of events. But like that, I wonder how the Greco wrestling compares to the techniques they use today. And actually, maybe some of that the fighting, the boxing and all that. See how brutal it might have been. Those all would have been cool things. I mean, it would have been cool to see all those things. You're out there with your flag, for your your city state out there. If you won, you were like riding through the streets or something, getting in drunk fights with the other city-state fans and stuff like that. It was probably a pretty wild time for the city of Olympia there. Probably brought in a lot of money too. Really helped them with tourism that way. So I don't know. I think the Olympics overall are just a really cool tradition that we still have those. We have summer games and winter games. I think it's just a really cool thing to for these athletes to be able to do that, and some of the I don't know, be able to move around the world just for a little bit, the world kind of watches together and that kind of thing. I wish we could, end wars during those times and stuff like that. And that's always been an issue with the modern days. They've had to not do some Olympics before because I think they did stop during World War II a little bit. Some countries have protested by not joining the Olympics. Maybe there's some kind of political protest. You can look into some of that. And then you get the one that's been delayed here is the Tokyo one that they're delaying because of the pandemic going on. So hopefully it's a tradition, that just keeps going, and hopefully it can keep and hopefully, stay out of the corrupt nature and stuff. Cause I bet there was plenty of corruption over there, corrupting judges and people finding that, but they don't have to worry as much back then, maybe about, steroid use and all that kind of stuff. So just a cool thing, just a really cool thing, a really cool, I think, tradition of society that I hope goes on for a long time. All right, hopefully you enjoyed that video too. I know I did. The original video link is down below, so you can go check that out. Saw some merch there, which was pretty cool. Just launched some new tiers in Patreon that will also get you some merch. They just launched an integration thing where you can, with certain tiers, you can get merch. One of the ones is actually the shirt design I'm wearing right now, Mr. Terry History shirt. If you're into kind of my Aztec design there, you can get this for different tiers on a shirt, a hoodie, a mug, a sticker, and stuff like that. And then, of course, we still got our World War II Mario Kart shirt, history shirt, that is on the Teespring account. So just ways, if you want to wear some cool history stuff in your life, you can look into that for sure. Okay, definitely join our Discord community. Thank you for subbing, and thank you for watching the video today, and we'll see you very soon. Bye.